We tend to only remember the empires that conquered the world and the civilizations that left behind detailed historical records. But what about the civilizations that simply disappeared? Entire cities abandoned, millions of people gone, and mysteries that archaeologists still can't fully explain. Here are 10 lost civilizations that vanished without a trace. Number 10. The Indus Valley Civilization. Around 5,000 years ago, while much of the world was still made up of small farming villages, something remarkable was happening in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. The Indus Valley Civilization built enormous cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Their streets formed perfect grids. Homes had private bathrooms connected to sophisticated underground drainage systems, something many European cities wouldn't achieve for thousands of years. At its peak, this civilization stretched across more than 1 million square kilometers and may have been home to over 5 million people. Yet despite all of this sophistication, we know surprisingly little about them. Why? Because nobody has been able to read their writing. Thousands of seals covered with strange symbols have been uncovered, but the script remains undeciphered. Without written records, historians are left piecing together clues from ruins alone. Then, around 1900 BC, everything changed. The great cities were gradually abandoned. Trade networks collapsed. Entire neighborhoods emptied. For decades, archaeologists believed invading armies destroyed the civilization. But more recent evidence suggests a very different story. Climate records indicate that shifting monsoon patterns may have caused devastating droughts, making farming impossible. Others believe repeated flooding forced populations to migrate elsewhere. The people themselves didn't simply disappear, they likely dispersed into smaller communities. But one of humanity's first great urban civilizations faded into history, leaving behind a language that still refuses to reveal its secrets. Number 9. The Nabateans. Hidden deep within Jordan lies Petra, one of the most breathtaking cities ever built. Entire temples, tombs, and palaces were carved directly into towering cliffs of rose-colored sandstone. But the people responsible for this incredible achievement were the Nabateans. Master traders, they controlled the lucrative incense and spice routes connecting Arabia with the Mediterranean. And through this network, they became incredibly wealthy. But what makes their achievement even more impressive is where they built it. Petra sits in an arid desert where water is scarce and survival is a constant challenge. Yet the Nabateans engineered something extraordinary, an elaborate network of dams, reservoirs, and hidden channels capable of collecting every drop of seasonal rainfall. They transformed a dry, unforgiving landscape into a thriving metropolis. But eventually, their golden age began to fade. Rome annexed the kingdom in 106 AD. Trade routes shifted. Sea transport became more efficient than the ancient overland caravans. And slowly, Petra began to decline. Then earthquakes struck, damaging much of the city's infrastructure. Over time, the once thriving capital was almost completely abandoned. By the Middle Ages, Petra had become so forgotten that few outsiders even knew it existed. Until Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered the lost city in 1812. The city survived. Its magnificent temples remained, but its people slowly vanished into history. Number 8. The Olmecs. Long before the Maya and the Aztecs dominated Mesoamerica, another civilization laid the foundations: the Olmecs. A civilization that left behind some of the most mysterious monuments in the ancient world. They're perhaps best known for their colossal stone heads, massive sculptures, some weighing over 20 tons. But the real mystery is how they were created. No wheels, no draft animals, and no obvious way to move such enormous stones. Yet somehow, these incredible monuments were transported for miles, across dense forests and powerful rivers, before being carved into remarkably lifelike portraits. Even today, Archaeologists still debate exactly how they managed it. But the Olmecs were far more than builders of giant statues. They pioneered writing, monumental architecture, and complex religious traditions that would influence civilizations for centuries to come. Then, around 400 BC, something changed. Their great ceremonial centers were abandoned. No evidence points to a massive invasion, no signs of widespread destruction. So what happened? Some researchers suspect volcanic eruptions may have devastated the region. Others believe environmental degradation or changing river systems may have crippled agriculture. Whatever the cause, one of the America's first great civilizations quietly disappeared, leaving behind only giant stone faces staring silently into the jungle. Number 7. The Ancestral Puebloans. Imagine building apartment complexes, 5 stories high, inside the walls of steep canyon cliffs. Not as temporary shelters, but as permanent homes built into the heart of the American Southwest. That's exactly what the Ancestral Puebloans accomplished. Communities like Mesa Verde contained hundreds of interconnected rooms built into natural alcoves high above the valley floor. These weren't simple shelters. They were thriving towns, complete with storage rooms, ceremonial chambers known as kivas, and sophisticated farming systems designed to support entire communities. But then, during the late 1200s, something happened. The people left. Almost overnight, entire settlements stood empty. But why? Researchers believe decades of severe drought placed enormous pressure on food supplies, making survival increasingly difficult. Evidence also points toward rising tensions and increasing violence between neighboring groups. Others argue that religious or cultural changes encouraged entire communities to migrate south toward more reliable sources of water. Whatever the reason, the cliff cities were never permanently reoccupied. Today, they remain frozen in time, an extraordinary reminder that even the most impressive homes can one day be abandoned. Number 6. The Lost Cities of the Khmer Empire. For centuries, Angkor Wat was considered the jewel of Cambodia, a breathtaking monument surrounded by mystery and one of the greatest architectural achievements of the ancient world. But then, modern technology revealed something astonishing. Using airborne laser mapping, known as LiDAR, archaeologists discovered that Angkor wasn't just one city. It was part of a vast urban landscape hidden beneath the dense jungle. Roads, canals, reservoirs, neighborhoods, entire districts, invisible from the ground, suddenly appeared on computer screens. Some estimates suggest it may have been the largest pre-industrial city on Earth. The Khmer Empire engineered one of history's most advanced water management systems, a network of reservoirs, channels, and waterways that allowed millions of people to survive seasonal floods and devastating droughts. But eventually, the very system that made their civilization powerful may have contributed to its downfall. Extreme climate swings, political instability, invasions from neighboring kingdoms, and failing infrastructure likely combined to weaken the empire. By the 15th century, much of Angkor had been reclaimed by the jungle. Nature slowly erased one of humanity's greatest cities, until lasers found it again. Number 5. The Cucuteni-Trypillia Culture. This next civilization may have practiced one of the strangest customs in human history. Every 60 to 80 years, they intentionally burned down their own cities. Thousands of homes reduced to ashes before entire settlements were rebuilt from the ground up. But why? No one knows for certain. Some researchers believe it was connected to ideas of spiritual renewal, a cycle of destruction and rebirth. Others suggest it may have helped eliminate disease or control pests by completely resetting their communities. Stretching across modern Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine, the Cucuteni-Trypillia culture built enormous settlements, thousands of years before many famous civilizations emerged. Some of these settlements contained as many as 15,000 people. But then, around 3000 BC, they disappeared. The cities they built were abandoned. Their traditions faded. So what happened? Did climate change force entire populations to migrate? Were they absorbed into expanding Indo-European cultures? Or did repeated environmental pressures eventually become too much to overcome? The truth remains hidden. A civilization that burned its own cities and then vanished, leaving behind a mystery that still remains unsolved. Number 4. The Rapa Nui of Easter Island. Few places on Earth feel as isolated as Easter Island. A tiny piece of land surrounded by thousands of miles of open ocean. Located more than 2,000 miles from the nearest populated landmass, this remote island became home to one of history's most recognizable mysteries. Nearly 1,000 towering stone statues, known as the moai, stand silently across the landscape, some weighing over 80 tons. But the greatest mystery is how the Rapa Nui moved these enormous giants across the island. With no modern machinery and limited resources, the method they used remains debated by researchers today. For years, the popular story was simple. The islanders cut down every tree, triggering environmental collapse and leading to conflict and civil war. But recent archaeological evidence suggests a far more complicated story. The Rapa Nui were not simply a civilization that destroyed itself. They were remarkably resilient. European diseases, slave raids during the 19th century, and outside contact likely caused far more devastation than environmental mismanagement alone. The true story of Easter Island is not just one of collapse. It is a reminder that history is rarely as simple as we first believe. And sometimes, the greatest mysteries come from the stories we thought we already understood. Number 3. The Hittites. During the Late Bronze Age, one empire stood shoulder to shoulder with Egypt itself. The Hittites. A civilization of skilled warriors, advanced engineers, and one of the greatest powers of the ancient world. Their armies pioneered the widespread use of iron weapons and commanded fearsome horse-drawn chariots that dominated the battlefields of their time. They even faced Pharaoh Ramses II in the legendary Battle of Kadesh, a conflict between two ancient superpowers that would eventually lead to what many consider the world's earliest surviving peace treaty. But then, everything changed. Around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age collapse began. Cities across the eastern Mediterranean fell one after another. The Hittite capital, Hattusa, was burned. The empire fragmented. Trade networks collapsed. And written records suddenly stopped. But what caused the downfall of one of the ancient world's greatest empires? Was it internal conflict or civil war? Or did climate-driven famine push the civilization beyond the point of recovery? Most historians believe there was no single cause. Instead, multiple disasters struck at once, creating a domino effect that brought entire kingdoms crashing down. The Hittites, one of the most powerful civilizations of their age, disappeared as an empire almost as quickly as they had risen. Number 2. The Maya collapse. The Maya achieved astonishing feats. They built towering pyramids that still dominate the jungles of Central America. They tracked the movements of planets with incredible accuracy, and their mathematical system included the concept of zero centuries before it was adopted in Europe. But then, around 800 to 900 AD, something extraordinary happened. Major cities across the southern lowlands were abandoned. Monuments stopped being erected. Royal dynasties disappeared. and for years, many imagined some sudden catastrophe had brought the Maya civilization to an end. But the reality appears far more fascinating. Researchers now believe multiple problems struck at the same time. Prolonged megadroughts, overpopulation, intense warfare between rival city-states, and deforestation that may have altered the local climate. Rather than one dramatic event, the collapse may have been a slow unraveling. But there is one important detail that is often misunderstood. The Maya people did not vanish. Millions of their descendants still live throughout Central America today, preserving languages, traditions, and a cultural legacy that has survived for thousands of years. The civilization changed, but the people endured. Number 1. Cahokia. Just across the Mississippi River from modern-day St. Louis, once stood the largest city north of Mexico. And yet, most people have never even heard of it. Cahokia flourished around the 11th century. At its peak, it may have been home to 40,000 people, a population larger than London during the same period. This was no ordinary settlement. The city featured enormous earthen pyramids, massive public plazas, and sophisticated astronomical alignments used to track the changing seasons. At its center stood Monk's Mound, the largest earthwork in North America, a structure that still towers above the landscape today as a reminder of the civilization that built it. But then, by the mid-1300s, everything changed. The city was abandoned, and no written records explain why. So what happened to Cahokia? Some researchers suspect environmental degradation after centuries of intensive farming. Others point toward political unrest, disease, changing trade routes, or repeated flooding from the Mississippi River. It is possible that no single disaster destroyed Cahokia. Instead, several pressures may have built over generations until the population slowly dispersed. Today, only grassy mounds remain of a city that once rivaled the greatest urban centers of medieval Europe. A civilization of incredible scale, faded so silently that for centuries, few people even knew it had ever existed. If you love ancient mysteries and strange history, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next discovery. I'll see you in the next video.